Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangete Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasunda Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So as we normally always recite, I was born without knowledge and my spiritual teacher opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my sincere respects unto them. I offer my respects to my teachers. Their grace turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. And finally, I offer my sincere respects to all the seekers of divine who fulfill the desires of everyone, who are full of compassion for all living beings. So again, thank you so much for being here today. And we are approaching we're still in the last section of the Dark Night of the Soul. And we're in this section where we're saying, let sacred love be our only goal. And as we always say, we're bringing our full presence to the discussion, respect for all that have joined us, and the determination to do the work that has been come before us. And in the last couple of weeks, what we've done is we've taken some time to explore these elements of humility, which are so important to further understand this information. But the two things we should always try to remember is what good others have done for us and what bad we have done for them, to always keep us in the space of growing and to be better. And the things we should try to as best let go of is the bad others may have done for us, and not necessarily the action, but trying to let go of the feelings that sometimes come with it, and the good we have done for others. All right, so if you remember, this is the last section of the Dark Night, and we have started by reviewing there's 3 teachings of Bhakti Yoga that are in this book. And we started last week, which will still continue on, but engage your heart in your yoga practice. That was the first section. And we'll probably we'll end that section and then start into the second section, which is widening our circle. So just to start off, I wanted to just start off with if you remember, we read this section last week from 290, where we were talking about this girl cat, and she was watching the news, and it was about American government, and they were, talking about planning, an oil field, and she referred to a really interesting, she referred to this concept, America's Dark Night of the Soul, in the sense that they were doing things that appeared to be that things were growing, but again, there was financial gain, but it was going to be at the expense of the environment. So I'll just recall this section that was really, we basically went into more of a kind of self-reflection into the question. But if you want to go to the top of 290, and it's this section here. So we're in the engage your heart in your yoga practice. So let this be our calling, she thought. Every time we encounter divisive and unkind communication, let it be our calling to love. A reminder to connect even more deeply to our heart, to compassion, to kindness. Let it be our reminder to choose to listen and to be guided by our heart to fulfill our true nature and purpose, to perpetuate peace, generosity, and love. The first step in engaging our heart in our yoga practice is to be more conscious of its state. Is my heart becoming softer or harder? Is my heart opening and expanding, or is it shrinking and shutting down? Am I acting from a place of love and kindness, or a place of competition and fear? For many today, the heart is more like a dead organ. Like the appendix, we're not quite sure what it's for. We may think it doesn't serve us well. Often we prefer to use our heads, our intellect. And so I just wanted to take a moment to just reflect on that, because if you remember from last week, we really set up our definition for yoga, or a way we should think about our practice that we can bring to really anything we do, but is a process softening our heart. And I thought this was really a powerful statement that Simon made. For many today, the heart is more like a dead organ, like the appendix. We're not quite sure what it's for. I just wanted to see, did anyone have any kind of reflections or comments on the section that we just read? Hey, Paul, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. It's so nice to see everybody. Good morning, Ricky.
Good morning. I was wondering where you were.
A rare moment when I looked at the alarm clock and went, I think I'm going to just keep sleeping. It was your idea last time.
Well, is it 6 o'clock at 6 o'clock
Yes.
at your time?
Mm-hmm.
6 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
That's still
Next time
sleeping.
we'll send you an alarm, we'll wake you up.
So Paul, we were just reading a small little section in the first part. And we were really just talking about, the first step in engaging our heart is to be more conscious of its state. And so we were just talking about, reflecting on this specific statement of the heart. For many today, the heart is more like a dead organ, like the appendix. We're not quite sure what it's for. And so I just wanted to hear if there was any comments or reflections, because based on that, we had talked about the definition that we're attributing to the practice of yoga, which is the process of softening our heart.
Rick, I think for me, welcome, Paul. I think it's just the timing of this statement, because I've been encountering, I guess, some divisiveness, and coming back, just hearing these words, compassion to me is always a word that I need to keep turning back to, because when you run into troubles with individuals, if you act with compassion, then that whole, I guess for me, be more not competition, but because sometimes you ask yourself, well, why is this happening? Why can they be thinking this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they getting it? But then you realize everyone's going through their path and their own journey. So it's a really good reminder, and that I think we're always going to encounter it, right? It's going to be part of our everyday, but sometimes it gets thrown more in our face. And I guess as I speak out loud, it's thrown in my face just so that I can maybe become more aware of it and practice it even more.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's so I would say the easy thing to do is to be reactive to these situations of divisive and unkind communication. And it's I will say that especially when we don't anticipate things, it's very much I've experienced in the past the sense of competition and fear when it comes about. So there's that statement of even this simple question, am I acting from a place of love and kindness or a place of competition and fear? Even if we're even able to just recall that statement and during a moment like that, I think it could just really serve us incredibly, because we can at the moment try to catch ourselves, because again, for me, it seems like I've experienced that it's very easy to go into that competition and fear state. So yeah, no, thanks for making that comment. Anybody else? So then really what I wanted to just discuss was what we talked about, like the two elements, compassion and kindness, or relationships. But I wanted to, I know we we kind of, we ended with this last week, but I wanted to see if anyone had any thoughts or reflections. So we identified some encounters of divisive communication. That was really helpful for me when I took the moments to look at it, and then, you know, just reflecting on how we responded. But I wanted to really just maybe touch on it for a few minutes. We reflected back on the qualities that we had seen in the previous chapters, the wealth of the gods. So did we bring these qualities to the, you know, to the situation that we were in? Or did we potentially bring the qualities of the ungodly? So things that we maybe can all identify with at some point. But I wanted to really maybe take a few minutes to talk about what prevented us, you know, from connecting with our heart, being kind and compassionate. And also it would be really nice to, you know, to discuss this last part of the next step to changing the approach. Because I think, as Tiffany mentioned, the situations will always be coming about. And what I was thinking is that it would be nice for us to potentially, if we're, you know, as we're taking these steps towards changing, perhaps, you know, in the future sessions, we can kind of serve as accountability partners, because we know that those situations of divisive, unkind communication are coming. And really going back to potentially, you know, our action item in our kind of evolution of trying to bring that, you know, these elements of connecting with ourselves first and being kind and compassionate. So, I mean, I'll just let everyone gather their thoughts, but I was hoping to discuss this for a couple of minutes. Avni, yes?
Hi. So to a level, again and again and again, I see myself approaching particular situations in a very good way, where I really try to exhibit the characteristics which are, what did you call them?
We call them wealth of the gods.
Yeah, so really try that. Well, then it gets to a point whereby I just feel unjust. The situation just feels unjust. And so it's like, I really hope so, I'm not sure, but like 80%, or even maybe a cheeky 85. I'm really doing well. But then that 15% when I just lose it. And it's with one particular person, and yeah, my feeling is everything goes down the drain. That person hasn't seen the 85, or I don't believe has seen the 85%, but I have, which is really good. And that's the most important, I reckon. That I keep on working with the help of this community and my further development, that I make the 85 into 86, 87, 89, 90, 95. Yeah, it's that 15% where I just, but I try.
No, thank you for, and usually I'll say that usually that the 15% that you're talking about, or even for even some people, maybe less or a little bit more, that it's usually with those that we're closest to, or, you know, in our closest relationships in life. It's really, you know, I'll just share that one time, and it's really stayed with me, but in a class, Radhanan Swami, he said that, you know, if we really want to, the barometer, the litmus test for our spiritual kind of development is not our relationships with our friends, maybe our cousins, our work colleagues, but it's the people we live with in the four walls, you know, inside our, you know, it's usually inside our home. And because those ones tend to be the most heated. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, because it was very easy for me to see in my own life that, you know, these are usually the most challenging, you know, situations. And then we've talked about it, that, you know, that they can tend to be the ones where our buttons are usually pushed the easiest, and likely there's a lot more familiarity in those relationships, that sometimes, you know, we clearly we have less of a filter, we can speak our mind, which is positive, but then that familiarity can also lead to where we, you know, we lose all sense of kind of common sense and rationality, right, as well. So I just wanted to just make that, you know, that kind of statement that really has been kind of a guiding post for something that I come back to often is, you know, how are the relationships within my kind of closest family setting.
And I love that you've told me that before, and it's so true, and thank you. So I needed to hear it again. But the beauty is that I think going forward is that I really have to remember that life is happening for us.
Mhm.
It's putting us in that situation to be tested again and again, and the more we fail, the more it comes with a vengeance. So and also, can you imagine, which is ironic, but I am getting clients with similar something to my situation. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm coaching them, not hypocritically, but I'm coaching them, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is for me to hear. This is for me to hear. This is for me to hear. Like I'll be very honest with you, and I think this is an extremely safe community, but I'm coaching a young university student, and she's talking about how the fact that when her parents fought, how it affected her. So very openly, this particular, when my 15% is with my husband, it's like I snap. I'm just like, I do 85%. I'm like, oh my God, you still haven't got it. And then boom, there's the bomb. But then this time, you know, then I see my children and how it's affecting them. And I'm like, but God is sending me clients, which I'm learning at the same time. And it's like, it's fast, it's amazing, it's magical.
Yeah.
So I have to course correct so that I'm able to ensure that my children are not, they are, but they're not too, you know, I need to talk to them a lot more that it happens. It's not your fault. It's, you know, do a lot of coaching for them too. And also coaching for me to say it's not okay to have these heated discussions and to do ungodly characteristics. It's not okay. So, yeah.
No,
Please
thank
don't
you.
think that this is the environment community that I can share.
Thank you. I was just thinking that at that 10-15% you're talking about, I feel oftentimes we need to unpack it, you know, at a very deep level for us to, you know, usually most of the times we're talking about and reflecting on that 85%. And I mean, like you're doing right now, shining light on that, you know, that smaller, you know, percentage of our being. Remember, we said there's a higher self and a lower self. It's really trying to shine that light on the lower self that we don't like to, but will be really helpful for us in the longer run, right? So Hiba, I'll just have you, I know you wanted to share.
No, it was just I wanted to ask Avni some of the tips she was coaching, you know, because, you know, we are as human, as she said, you know, we have common things concerning, and it was very interesting how you put the finger on a very sensitive and important, you know, subject in our daily life. So Avni, I don't know if you don't mind just sharing some of the tips of your coaching for your client concerning this issue, because sometimes you can hear stuff and we can hear ourselves. And I'd like as well what you said about your things related to your kids, because I was, it was the same for me.
Yeah, I can. In fact, I mean, I'm helping this beautiful young girl unpack what's happened in her past, whereby I'm not telling you what she's experienced such horrific, fights, yeah, whereby she has then retracted. And then what I'm explaining to her is very simply also the communication model, whereby the fact is we behave the way we do because of our programming. So say, for example, the father has a particular approach, the mother has a particular approach. Their approach exists because of what they've experienced in their life. And what that does is that allows the individual to really not place blame on that particular individual as their dad, you know what I mean, or the mum. It's basically to say that, they've inherited and they've adopted those behavioral patterns. They are not in a position, or they haven't put themselves in a position to be coached. So they will not be able, their healing is probably, it goes with age, but it doesn't happen on that quick acceleration which she is experiencing. What happened is that she is able to look at her father in a different light and say, hey, it's not against me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with how his parents were, how their parents' parents were. You see what I mean? And it just eases that relationship between their parents and her. Also to know that it's not her fault. And for her to know that one's programming can be altered. It can. You don't sweep everything under the carpet, but you look at those situations and you become more aware. You reflect on it and you take the learnings and you move on and you heal all those behavioral patterns that have resulted from it. So it's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal, really, really phenomenal. So I always tell my children, first of all, it's not your fault. This situation is not your fault, because we don't want them to harbor that in the future. And then I always talk to them like many adults, that discussions do happen. And my fault was I didn't talk calmly. My fault was I jumped to a conclusion. I talk about where I've gone wrong, that I'm not superior. At that time, I've called my husband everything under the sun, but sorry, Ricken. but I don't let it, I hopefully don't let it harbor in them to really affect their programming. It's going to be, everyone's going to go through coaching anyway. So I don't know whether that helped, but the communication model is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. That fact that everything happening around externally and what the picture that's made, the 5D picture that's made in your mind is really influenced by your upbringing. And then if you believe in reincarnation, you can have it from long time before. So, but everything can be healed and changed and reflected upon. So yeah.
Thank you, Avani. Stacy, did you want to share?
I was just going to mention, we talked about this before, that book, The Conscious Parent. I mean, that book to me has been so profound. And I can see how, through all those stories, it's kind of the same method of this book, The Dark Night of the Soul, where there's all those stories. And, it just, to me, it's just this piece that comes from detachment of realizing that, you're just acting out the things that you saw when you were a kid and, all that and other things. Right. But it's just, to me, it's been so helpful, because it's gotten to an understanding. And like now, like say with my husband that annoyed me at certain things, I see his parents and I see what is happening. He's acting out the same darn thing, and his parents aren't going to change, but he can, right? And so I don't know, it's so helpful.
Yeah. No, thank you. And it's so funny that you're mentioning that my mom was just, I mean, my mom often mentions that about my dad too. He's like, the parents were, his parents were like this, and sometimes she'll reflect. She's like, Dad's doing the same thing, from what I saw like 40 years ago.
Why does it not change? No, but you have to become conscious.
You know
of
what?
it,
I think,
you know?
I mean, first of all, there has to be you have to have the desire to change.
Mhm.
And then Stacy and Avni, you have to be relentless. Like, it has to be really relentless about pursuing it, because that conditioning is so deep. We're not
Mhm.
talking about like it's deep for like, you've been doing it for 5-10 years. It's been there, like, it's part of the conditioning that sometimes we didn't even know we were born with, but it's there, right? And so we have to be really relentless to kind of face it, deal with the fact that it's reoccurring, even though we're making, our effort. But yeah, it requires a certain level of tenacity that I think it's not everyone is willing to go through, because it's painful. It's really painful. So I just wanted to go back and see, did anyone want to talk about, like, I know did anyone want to talk about their personal, we were just looking at the slide of just, changing their approach towards how they, next time they're coming into this situation, what they want to try to kind of work on, or, how they want to make a, shift in a situation next time to bring kindness and compassion. So we reflected on how we responded previously. Some things we may have done great, other things we may wanted to have worked on. Is there anything that people wanted to share on how they wanted to? One thing that was coming to my mind just with communication that's been really helpful is when we look at a situation, for me, starting the discussion with facts, and not with the facts of a situation versus the feelings that I have for something that was done, right? So usually I think we tend to respond with how we felt in a given situation, but just trying to really decipher what was a fact, an observable fact that both people can see, versus how I felt towards something that was coming at me. So for me, I've been really trying to work on opening, trying to address something with just the things that are, are more concrete and observable. So that's what I had listed as my kind of step towards approaching it, how I have been and how I'm trying to, trying to do so more in the future.
The Ricken, that I find that for me, in my experience, a little bit dangerous, because even the facts, what you think is a fact and what they think is a fact, is two different things. So even for that, is for me very tricky. I tend to have to take separate the behavior and the person. The fact that I did not like you not appreciating me, not you didn't appreciate me. It's just the action away from the person. So, but even the facts are different. The way that my husband sees the facts is very.
And it's usually because of the concrete facts are usually can be triggering and probably difficult to deal with. So that's why they can, I think sometimes we can even, if things have happened well into the past, our mind can actually, bend the fact to what, is comfortable for us, rather than sometimes what actually is. So that, again, it's really hard sometimes to put the mirror up or have accountability for individuals that aren't looking for it, right? Anyone else wanted to share any of their, approach, like an approach that they're trying to implement, or a small micro change towards kindness and compassion? Maybe it's even a practice that they're trying to do to help them, to give them the tools to be better in a certain situation. Tiffany?
I guess one of the things that I'm just trying to do is, when I encounter these situations, is just take a moment to pause. And, sometimes the mask is actually, we still have to sometimes wear a mask in Bermuda. And sometimes the mask is great because you can pause and no one does see your expression, that's going on. But to pause, just to really intently listen, and then go into my heart, and really just kind of take a breath or two, just as I'm listening to them, to try to get myself to shift the feeling back to the heart again. And this is what I'm trying to, and my hope is that it can help to shift the conversation. But again, this is just a practice. Because if you feel like you need a tool, right? You feel like you need tools when you go into these situations.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's, again, apparently may seem small, but such a big thing. Just that breathing, to pause in the moment, to think, okay, where am I? Put your feet on the ground, what day is it? What situation am I in? And even just that moment can really change your whole response to this, to the situation of either not responding or saying, approaching it slightly differently. Thank you. That's a really nice one to be reminded of for myself. Anybody else? Hiba or Stacy or Paul, anything that has come to mind in these particular situations? All right. So
I guess
go ahead.
one quick thing. I tend to think, we reflect like mirrors, so it's like, if we are happy as we do the inner work, right, things bother us less, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like confirmation bias. I don't think that's exactly the right word, but there was this study by Marcus Buckingham, and he talked about red threads. So it's like, basically, if you're doing things that you love like 20% of the time, it's like everything else gets wrapped around by this red thread, like everything else you're doing, and it makes everything else better. And I guess that's what I found in my life as I'm, spending more time doing things that I love, which is usually my writing, and working with clients. I mean, I guess things just don't really, it's kind of becomes like the lotus flower, you just, right? Like you said, I love that analogy. 'Cause yeah, when you see one, it just, the mud just kind of comes out. Now I don't have to deal with some of the things that like you guys do if you're doctors and things like that, to deal with, you have to deal with difficult people. I mean, I don't have to do that. Right. So that helps. But I guess that's made a tremendous difference for me over these past few years, that I just decided to pursue my passions, at least first part-time and now full-time,
Yeah. I think that bringing those things that we love really, the principle that we talked about earlier in this book was tolerating the impermanence. So one, realizing that things will come and go, but to be able to, how do we sit through those, those challenging moments? But I think, focus, really trying to have some time carved out for us, even if it's in a portion of our day for our own. I think, again, the idea that you were talking about, Stacey, is when we've gone like further within ourselves and we're experiencing that happiness, then, we bring that to everything else we do, right? So just that idea of going deeper within ourselves will change how, change our ability to situations to, bring more compassion and kindness. So thank you. Paul, did you want to share something?
I just came out of 3 days of complete silence. So most of it is, it's been really, really good. So
3 full days?
3 full days. Yeah, it was pretty
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah, I went up to the lake house and just ended up staying longer than planned. And so I don't know, going inwards is good. I like alone time a lot. In the difficult moments, I think they are much easier when I am well balanced. So when I'm not tired, I'm not so basically managing my emotional state helps me navigate through things. So it's been a bit of a long journey on that end in terms of studying emotional intelligence and knowing what my triggers are and feeling sort of, oh, my chest is tight. I don't know why, but I think maybe I should just, slow down and take a break. So it's more sort of about monitoring myself and making sure that I stay in a good place. And when I'm not in a good place, to try and minimize the number of people I speak with.
Yeah, no, that's very, I'm not sure if everyone else has done a kind of a silent retreat like that with themselves or with others. It's something maybe we can do as a group. It's really powerful, even just for a day. But I mean, if you have multiple days to spend that time just with your thoughts, it's not easy for those of us that like to be social and talkative. Great. All right. Why don't we, there was a second section that I wanted to read. It's 291, and there's some really awesome parts in this. So if someone wanted to read, it's section 2, as a young boy. To start reading, that would be great.
I can do it. I've been silent for a long time. As a young boy, I used to make my own pottery in school. Tall, twisting vases, bowls, and gorgeous glazes, and bright ceramic fish. When absorbed in creating, I would enter a different realm. It was as if time and the world, with all its troubles, no longer existed. My favorite creation during one term was a shallow bowl. A deep sky blue on the inside, it finished a dark lapis lazuli at the rim. I was the last pupil to leave. Walking home, I cradled the creation in my arms, having carefully wrapped it in newspaper. As I made my way up Catherine Street, I felt something sharp pressing against my lower back. "Give me your money or I'll stab you," a voice behind me commanded. It was Rufat, a local bully who preyed on younger children. I froze. "I don't have any money," I whimpered, holding my ceramic bowl close. Rufat began to laugh. He now revealed that he'd been pushing an open pen into my back, not a blade. The distress the deception had caused pleased him. "What do you have there?" he asked. "Just something I made at school," I said. This seemed to rile Rufat. With a heavy sweep of his arm, he flung the bowl out of my hands into the air. The vessel came crashing down on the pavement. I could hear it shatter instantly. Tears in my eyes, I opened the newspaper, revealing a collection of ceramic shards. Rufat's eyes gleamed with delight. On my way home, I considered throwing the sky blue shards into one of the bins on the sidewalk, but it didn't feel right. I put so much loving attention into creating the piece that tossing it away seemed disrespectful, so I took the bundle home. Julia was a friend who loved handicrafts and pottery. She would make beautiful mosaics out of pebbles and fragments of ceramic. I gave what was left of my bowl to her. Many years passed, and Julia and I went to separate universities. Excuse me. Occasionally we met in Leicester during holidays. Despite all the opportunities it offered, university was a bewildering time for me. It culminated my first dark night of the soul. Everything I knew fell apart. I tried to conceal my confusion in darkness. I pushed up with my studies and tried to portray an appearance of normality, but I was in pain. I sheltered in alcohol. Looking back, I feel lucky to have made it through such a difficult time. In my final year, the suffering seemed especially brutal, and the inability to explain its cause intensified my loneliness. I felt ashamed and powerless. Julia had some inkling of what was going on. One sunny afternoon in July, she came to give me a gift. It was wrapped in newspaper. I unwrapped the gift, and my eyes fell upon a sky blue bowl with a rim of deep lapis lazuli. Streaks of bright gold ran across the bowl, branching out wildly like lightning. The bowl had obviously been shattered and then lovingly repaired with gold lacquer. It looked more beautiful for having been broken. I looked up at Julia. She smiled. It was the same bowl I had made more than 10 years earlier. She had carefully glued all the broken ceramic pieces back together with gold. "If something's broken, it can still be beautiful," Julia said. There's an ancient Japanese form of art known as kintsugi, to repair with gold. Broken pottery is repaired with lacquer, dusted or mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The philosophy of this symbolic art form is to highlight, rather than conceal, the damage caused by life. It treats breakage and repair as a natural part of the history of an object. The intrinsic value of the object doesn't decrease because of brokenness, rather, it appreciates. In our life, we build an identity and a story, rather like fragile ceramic ware. That creation is susceptible to the breaks, the knocks, and the shattering of life. The dark night of the soul breaks us apart. In a culture obsessed with image and perfection, we try to disguise the breakages. We want to forget the damage of life, certainly not highlight it. If something is broken, we usually throw it away. But ancient wisdom traditions have, for thousands of years, taught us how to embrace the flawed and the imperfect, highlighting the freedom and spaciousness this brings. There's great beauty in life's imperfections. Kintsugi delivers the message that we can embrace on our own brokenness, claiming it as a natural process of being alive. Rather than hold our shattered pieces with shame, fear, or self-loathing, we're called to hold on them with love and tenderness, as if gilded in gold. Love is the gold lacquer that allows us to put together the pieces of the brokenness in the dark night of the soul. Love and kindness make us whole and beautiful, imbuing our brokenness with wisdom and revealing the strength inherent in its vulnerability. It's easy to focus on the disappointments of life, the flaws, the broken pieces. This can make us cynical, hardening our hearts. It can make us impervious to the suffering of others. This is the path of V-Yoga, the opposite of yoga. By using love and kindness as a precious lacquer in our life and the life of others, we engage our heart in our yoga practice.
Any comments or thoughts on this story? I never knew about this art form called kintsugi. Do people know about that? Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I really, one of the parts, this particular section that jumped out at me was this, it's on 294. In a culture obsessed with image and perfection, we try to disguise the breakages. We want to forget the damage of life, certainly not highlighting it. If something is broken, we usually throw it away. That was really, just thinking to how, how kind of society is structured at this point, and usually even, things like social media, it's again, like usually that tip of the iceberg where we only see a portion of someone's life. But I really like this, trying to, and I think that's what we do every week when we come together, is just embracing, embracing this, the broken pieces that we all have over the course of our life. And the discussion, in fact, is, I think, like how it says here, love is the gold lacquer that allows us to put together the pieces of our brokenness in the dark night of the soul. I thought that was a really powerful statement, because then we know what the ingredient is. And usually, love requires one, like a safe space, and two, trust. And so I think those are really the jewels that we've cultivated over the last little while, amongst us, to be able to put together the broken pieces that we all inevitably have. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to, again, like he says, hold, to hold it with actually some type of love and tenderness. Stacy?
Yeah, I love that that image. And at the same time, though, I think people that have been willing to tell their story, like, there's so much desire for that out there. And I think the overcome story, right? I mean, whatever you might think, I mean, it sells, right? Like, you think about Tony Robbins talking about how, his mom ran him out with the butcher knife, and he had to live in a bathroom, and, he was living in his car and all that stuff. I mean, those are things that you remember, right? So it's like, that concept of our mess becomes our message, right? If we allow it to. So it just, if we can, if we can get to a place where we can tell that story, there's just so much that we can inspire others with it. It's really the most powerful thing that we can do, right? To inspire others is to tell that story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why I think that, if we're looking at the dichotomies of love and fear, or just kind of courage and fear, I feel like love is the missing ingredient in bringing us towards courage. Because we just all need to develop that courage to be able to, to do, to share. Because I think in that sharing, we also become, that authenticity comes and we become more clear on our message and purpose. And so, yeah, I really feel like he says love is the gold lacquer that allows us to put the pieces of the brokenness together. Anybody else wanted to share something on this section, or just on what Stacy had mentioned?
I first heard the concept about 15 plus years ago. My best friend at the time had passed away on a motorcycle, and I went back to the scene of the accident with one of the guys he was with, and basically said, when life shatters, it becomes a mosaic when you put it back together as more beautiful. So I've heard it in different contexts, but I do like the gold rim on this one. This one actually makes it sparkle better.
Yeah. Avni?
Yeah, I love that word mosaic. I think mosaic's beautiful. So in fact, last week after our session on Friday, I actually read this story, and I read it and then I read it aloud to a fellow parent who has also had their child there doing horse riding. And I just had, it's something inside me was like, you need to hear this story. And then she goes to me, oh my God, I received the message that, something must be going on in her life. So it was just very powerful. So thank you so much, Paul. I love the way that you read it. A few words come out to me in terms of experience, because all those things are our experiences. The fact that also Stacy said that all the mentors, they talk about their dark nights, and then where they were and where they are now. Another thing is the presupposition that we believe in NLP is that there is no failure, only feedback. That comes to me. Authenticity. When people hear stories where you are talking from experience, it's so authentic and people just connect with you. And when you say, Ricken, about love, love is the connectivity. It's like love our imperfections. It's to love our imperfections, because those are our strengths. Because if everything went hunky-dory all the time, we wouldn't learn, we wouldn't grow. But it's because of those imperfections that we grow every single day. So it's so funny, because my mum's a feng shui consultant, and she said, if anything's broken, go throw it away. Just throw it away. Don't have anything broken in the house. So I'm sitting here looking at this Buddha and laughing Buddha, and it's got so many chips on it, because God bless them, my house help. I don't know how it happens, but it's got so many chips. I'm looking at it right now, and after hearing this story, I'm going, everywhere it's chipped, I'm just going to put stick a butterfly, to cover up, because it tells a story. Why should I chuck the Buddha away where I bought it for a reason? So I loved it. I think Japanese people are so wise, so beautiful. So I love this story, and I've shared it already.
Thank you, Avni. Just before we wrap up, I wanted to read the last story. So if someone could start with part 3, The Pharaohs Darkened. Someone else want to read?
I can read.
Please.
Okay, there we go. The pharaoh's darkened, shriveled, mummified corpse lay in one of the many glass display cases of the museum, its head unwrapped. A plain white notice read, King Ramses II. New Kingdom 19th dynasty 1279 through 1213 BC. The notice listed the many ailments of our pharaoh: dental abscesses, severe arthritis in his hip joints, arteriosclerosis. I wondered whether Ramses II, also known as the Osimidius, the most powerful pharaoh of the Egyptian empire, could ever have fathomed he would become a public display piece in a museum. Onlookers peered at his unwrapped face with a mixture of curiosity, awe, and repulsion. As a young boy, I wanted to become an archaeologist. Dreaming of discovering ancient cities and forgotten treasures, I began studying the lost cities of the ancient world. One of these was Ramses II's capital of Pi Ramses. Ramses II moved his capital city from Thebes to the Nile Valley to a new site on the easternmost branch of the Nile. The new showplace city of Pi Ramses, built with untold human toil, was dominated by huge temples and the king's vast palace. This is one of the largest cities of ancient Egypt, 7 times larger than the city of London. Poems were written about its splendor. Pi Ramses was to fall upon hard times, however. Only 2 generations after Ramses II, the easternmost branch of the Nile began to silt up, leaving the city without water. The 21st dynasty of Egypt dismantled the entire capital and transported it to a new branch of the Nile many miles away. For the next 3,000 years, the ancient site of Pi Ramses was lost in Egypt's sandy silence. The massive feet of a broken statue of Ramses are all that remain above ground today. Ramses II had wanted his legacy to survive the ravages of time. He had built on a scale unlike almost anything before and had erected many statues of himself many more statues of himself than any other pharaoh. Inscribed on the base of one of his statues was the following triumphant boast: "King of kings am I, O Simidius. If anyone would know how great I am and where I lie, let him surpass one of my works." The pharaoh's hollow boast now seemed to echo with the laughter of the Egyptian gods. Archaeology has taught me that nearly all human endeavor is vanity. Our entire life is one long, convoluted expression of our own narcissism. Even our good works are often concealed narcissism. They are expressions of our underlying dark night of the soul, our lack of wisdom. Importantly, archaeology has also taught me that nothing, not even our greatest creation, withstands the erosion of time. As I gazed at the shriveled, mummified corpse of Osimidius, King of Kings, I realized I was looking at my own reflection. Like the great pharaoh, we all hope we make our mark in this world, eager to be recognized and to become a king of kings of sorts. And in the end, after a life of feverish striving, it's death that awaits each one of us. Unless what we do is an expression of kindness and loving service, our efforts are little more than the meaningless toil of the dead. Not only individuals, but whole societies go through dark nights of the soul. According to the sacred texts of India, we're currently in a global dark night known as Kali Yuga, an age of darkness and crisis. As a society, we've lost our way. Our sense of meaning is shattered. The only way to heal is through love and compassion. Of course, love is a word with many meanings and is often misused. In order to act from this deeply powerful place, we first need to find and restore its sacred meaning. Before beginning to share his most confidential teachings on love, Krishna indicates that the transition from small love to sacred love is the perfection of yoga. As physical exercise alone, yoga can't help us in our own dark night or in our societal dark night. But by making yoga a practice of the heart, we not only illuminate our own darkness, but light up the dark corners of our environment too. The dark night of the soul can help us become deeply compassionate, both to ourselves and to others. Deep within, love is what is most sacred to us all. We're ready to love and be loved. Love is our natural inclination, the calling of the soul. Nothing less will satisfy or nurture us. As my teacher explained, we can experience so much of life while our most central need, the need to love and be loved, remains unfulfilled. Love's power is unimaginable. All else can be eliminated and forgotten if we come in touch with true love and affection. When one questions or challenges the principle of love, one has to accept defeat. Love is the most substantive principle. When we understand this, we engage our heart in our yoga practice, making unconditional love the aim of our practice.
Thank
Beautiful.
Yeah, really nice. I wanted to read, there was a section here about Kali Yuga. There was a subscript 19, and I looked it up. So I'll just read that where the subscript is coming from. It says here, Sri Madhavacharya explains that Duryodhan, so Duryodhan is the leader of the opposing army on the battlefield. Duryodhan represents Kali Yuga, the societal dark night of the soul. It says the battle of Kurukshetra occurs just before the onset of Kali Yuga, the point of transition from one age to another. Hence, Krishna's yoga teachings and the Bhagavad Gita are meant specially to help us in Kali Yuga, the present age of darkness and despair. So I like how most of the times I do, but I feel like sometimes the subscripts can add to what's there in the text. And we can see, I mean, we can talk more about it next time, but what characteristics make up this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, or he calls it darkness and despair, that we're currently in. And, once we see, we look at kind of that from that point of view, we see it all around us, this quarrel and hypocrisy. And I really, I mean, the last part of this chapter, remember we said that there's the word dharma means inherent property, right? So the dharma of sugar is to be sweet, and the dharma is fire to give heat or light, and the dharma of the soul is in fact to give and receive love, right? So that's its inherent property. It's what it's always, it's meant for at all times. And so we can even just come back to, simple first principle, kind of definition, then it hopefully will just always connect us back to this principle of just trying to put out kindness and compassion. And just to wrap up, I just wanted to highlight the few things that all of us mentioned about our action or what we're trying to do. I had mentioned, just for us, so we can all remember these things, I had mentioned bringing to discussions to first focus on observable facts rather than our feelings for what was done. Tiffany had mentioned I'm just trying to think, what did Tiffany mention? Someone's muted. I'm just trying to think. I just had
pausing and going
into
your
right,
heart.
pausing. Yeah, pausing. So just taking that deep breath and pausing, which I think is also a really powerful one. Stacy brought up the point of doing things we love, and I think also to add to that was just trying to go, deeper within ourselves. So I think even just those three things, if I'm forgetting anything else that anyone else mentioned, please let me know. But yeah, I think these were great nuggets for all of us to to hold into our coming week. Anything else before we close? We will start into widening our circle next week.
Love it.
Thanks, Rick, and nice seeing everybody. I hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
See
Hiva.
you. Bye-bye.